on, folks? It's Lando from Today's Tech, and let's talk about foldables, but more specifically, let's talk about the Galaxy Z Fold2. Now, it's been, what, 10 months since this guy dropped, and every single time I use it, I just get more and more excited about the future of foldables. This is just about as premium as it gets for tech enthusiasts right now. But that's just it. This is more of a tech enthusiast device, more so than it is a smartphone for the average consumer. And I'll explain why, but it gets me thinking, where to next? Where do we go from here to get every company making one and get one of these in everyone's pocket? We'll get to that. But first, let's take a look at what we have now. So at first glance, when it's closed, this guy is pretty thick, almost as thick as two smartphones at its thickest point at the hinge. So yeah, a thick one. And with that thickness comes quite a bit of heft. It's definitely got some weight to it, but it's still light enough for that signature one-handed pinky hold. And I've definitely gotten used to it after a while, and because it's such a slim and tall device when it's closed, it's really not hard to hold with one hand. The hinge actually helps out with that. It's just a big surface area for you to hold on to, so it works. And then the sides kind of have this brushed aluminum going on, so that helps. And then the satin finish on the rear glass completes what I call the trifecta of grip. So despite the size, when it's closed, it's still grippy and pretty easy to hold. But I'll tell you, I like the fact that the edges are flat enough for it to stand up on its own. It always makes for a nice aesthetic, in my opinion. Sometimes I like to stand it up while I'm working so I can see the always on display and catch any attention-worthy notifications. But that's probably just me on that one. Now, the fingerprint sensor on the side is actually a capacitive sensor, like we used to have when we had the home buttons. So it is a bit faster than the ultrasonic under-display sensors, but I gotta say, I'm not particularly a fan of the placement. I get a ton of accidental touches because that's where I naturally grab onto when I pick it up or take it out of my pocket. Obviously, there's a setting for that, but it's just more convenient to have the sensor ready to go at all times. So, hey, you win some, you lose some, right? But this cover display, this is where it gets a little bit more unorthodox. It's a very slim and tall 25:9 aspect ratio that still comes out to 6.2 inches, surprisingly. And for reference, that's much slimmer than the S21 Ultra's 20:9 6.9 inch display, or even the iPhone 12 Pro Max's 19.5:9 6.7 inch display. But I mean, it's still an OLED made by Samsung, so it looks fantastic. It's bright, it's really color accurate, and it's really not bad to work with. It's only 60 hertz, so kind of a bummer, but I definitely find myself using it a lot more than I thought I would. But that's partly because this phone becomes a certified two-hander when it's open. And believe it or not, I actually do watch the occasional YouTube video on it. It kind of acts as its own kickstand with the new hinge that you can lock in at different angles. So it's pretty versatile, but also I think it's the novelty of it that kind of draws me into using it. I never thought that I would be so okay with such a strange aspect ratio, but hey, I've gotten used to it. It's convenient. But when it comes to typing on it, yeah, I can't say I don't wish it was the typical size and shape of a more standard smartphone display. Heck, Huawei got it done with the Mate X2, so we know it's doable. But it's just one of those things. Would the average consumer be okay with using this funky display? Yeah. Not too sure on that one. Now, that hinge I just mentioned, that's what's responsible for the folding and unfolding of the inner display, which is still holding strong almost a year later, I might add. But this display, is like a step right into the future. First of all, it's massive at 7.6 inches, so it's bigger than your iPhone or your traditional Android device. It has a 120 hertz refresh rate, so everything looks buttery smooth. And again, it's an OLED made by Samsung, so it just looks so good. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, watching content or just scrolling Twitter, it's so nice to be on such a large display. And thankfully, some of the more common media consumption apps like YouTube and Netflix can accommodate the awkward 5:4 aspect ratio, so content can actually fill the entire screen. And yeah, some stuff gets cut off, but still, absolutely worth it because it's bigger than your regular smartphone display, but smaller than a tablet. So it just doesn't get any better than that for a device that can still fit in your pocket. Of course, there is the crease right down the middle of the display, but first of all, it hasn't gotten any worse than the day I got it. And second of all, it just comes with the territory. There's no other way to get such a large device to fit in your pocket without folding it. For now, at least. Like, creases are a part of anything that folds, so that's that on that. But for those that are actually interested in getting this device, you gotta get a kickstand case. There's nothing like being able to prop this guy up when it's unfolded. Whatever you're watching definitely hits different on this guy. And full screen gaming is just as you would imagine. Fire. And I wouldn't call myself a gamer. You know, I'll play some Asphalt 9 here and there, and it's just a better experience than you're used to. You feel more immersed in the game. So yeah, all in all, this device is an absolute beast for media consumption. And you know, it's nice. I feel like Samsung has taken almost every possible precaution to make the Fold 2 as durable as they could, especially after the Fold 1 debacle. So it's got these end caps on both ends of the crease, for one, to hold down the display when it's folding, but then also to make sure that nothing gets underneath the display. It's a very nice touch, and it's also got these rubber nubs on the right side so that when you fold it closed, there's kind of like a little soft layer for it to rest on. But of course, you can't resist the urge to slam it closed though. That's still super nostalgic and satisfying 10 months later. And another durability feature is one you can't see, and that's these little bristles hidden away inside the hinge that work to keep out any dust or dirt or anything that could harm the display. Then of course there's the ultra thin layer of glass underneath a few layers of plastic, so it feels really durable. I thought it might feel kind of mushy, but nope, very solid. Like, you almost can't tell the difference between this and a full-on glass display with a plastic screen protector on when you're using it. Although if you look closely, there's still a slight gap when it's closed, and it's very possible that something could get in there. But I've been cautious enough and lucky enough to not get a single scratch on it. But this hinge combined with the super strong magnets keep it safe and closed. And then lastly, there's a raised bezel on the inside just as an extra precaution to make sure that the two sides don't come into contact with each other when it's closed. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things you could do with a traditional smartphone that you wouldn't want to risk with this guy. So no beaches, no water, probably shouldn't take it on any outdoor adventures. It's kind of restrictive. I had actually just gotten mine when I was in the middle of moving, and I dropped it and scuffed a few edges, and I almost had a heart attack. But again, having to be so careful with a plastic top layer on the display that could easily scratch or get punctured, it's something that I'm willing to work with, but is it something the average consumer would want to deal with? Again, not too sure on that one. Now, I don't want you to think you have to have it carried around in its own special carrying case or something, but you just can't be as rugged as you're used to. But hey, Samsung has done a fantastic job with the software with the help of their Good Lock apps. And if you're not familiar, Good Lock is kind of like the home base app for extra customization features for Samsung smartphones. So within Good Lock, there are 13 additional customization apps with quite a bit of unique features. So because the 5:4 aspect ratio is so unorthodox, some apps don't support it natively, so it's the iHeart Galaxy Foldable section in the Multistar app that allows you to force every app to fit the entire screen, even Instagram, but it's not quite ideal in that case. You'll sometimes have to scroll to see a whole picture, so that's something that'll ultimately have to be worked out by Instagram developers. But there's also app continuity settings that allow you to have all apps stay open and adapt when you're going from the cover display to the inner display or vice versa. So it definitely helps enhance the experience so you can take full advantage of the display. But I'd honestly rather have the developers of each individual app kind of develop these adaptations so they're a little bit finer tuned, but they're probably not going to take the time to do it until foldables catch on a bit more, and especially while Samsung is basically doing it for them. But then of course, as you'd expect, there's also major multitasking capabilities where you can have up to 10 apps open at once as these little floating bubbles, which is kind of crazy. Like if I have that much work to do, I'd much rather just grab the tablet or head over to the computer. But it's at least nice to have that kind of functionality built in. And there's even a quote unquote tablet mode where you can see more content in some apps like messages, for example. And then lastly, there's flex mode when you fold it halfway and it'll utilize both portions of the display for different things. Some apps have the functionality baked in like Duo or YouTube or the camera app, but again, it's not widespread just yet. So Samsung tried their best to really adapt apps to be able to take advantage of the full display, and I've got to applaud them for it. Got to give credit where it's due, you know? Now, camera-wise, they're nothing too crazy, no 8K or 100x space zoom. It's your usual triple camera array with the wide, ultra-wide, and a 2x optical telephoto camera. And pictures come out pretty good. You know, they're vibrant. They've got great HDR, great autofocus. So maybe a bit better than the S20 Ultra from last year and just about on par with the Note 20 Ultra. And I'll link my review to both of those phones right over here and also down below if you guys want to watch. But my favorite trick with these cameras is the ability to take selfies with the much better rear cameras. So when you open her up and tap this little icon here, it has the cover display act as a second viewfinder. So you can flip it around and take a selfie and see yourself, or whomever you're taking a picture of can see themselves. So nice way to make use of the extra display. And lastly, as far as performance and specs go, it hangs with the best of them. It's got 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, and it's powered by last year's flagship Snapdragon 865 Plus. So of course it easily keeps a ton of apps open and allows you to multitask like it's nobody's business. And surprisingly, the battery holds up okay. I mean, I tend to end up charging it about midway through the day, but that's more so because of my OCD than it is the battery life. So I end up with about 25% left on days when I don't charge it midday, which comes to about 4 to 6 hours of screen on time. So yeah, not too shabby. But this all begs the question of where to next? Like, what can be done to get foldables in the pockets of the average consumer? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. But personally, for starters, I think they've got to make the cover display even bigger with a more common, maybe like an 18.5:9 aspect ratio, which in turn would also make the inner display even bigger and probably more appealing. And I think they've got to strengthen the display if this thing is going to be in the hands of the average consumer. I could see a ton of people who are used to more traditional smartphones breaking this guy. So we'll have to see how they do with the upcoming Fold 3, which will supposedly have S Pen support, which I am super excited for. So you could say that foldables are catching on, but they're catching on amongst enthusiasts, not necessarily the general public. I think it's still a bit too much for the average consumer, so this year will be a really strong test to see if the Fold 3 and the Flip 3 can take the place of the Note series in that second half of the year slot. I think there's still a lot that the average consumer would say no to, and heck, I've yet to even see a foldable out in the wild, but we're getting there, and I'm all for it. And with that, thanks for the support by sticking around until the end. Always appreciated. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, follow me on my socials, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace and love, guys.